this year. So, no idea.
Isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad there are so many people still supporting clean energy in this country.
Heaviest hitting political panel of Climate Week. A US Secretary of State, a Prime Minister of Italy, one of NATO's most senior commanders, and the EU's Commissioner for Energy. Please welcome John Kerry, Matteo Renzi, General Sir Richard Shirreff, and Dan Jorgensen, and your moderator, Anne Mettler.
I was there in 1990 and 92 when we actually passed globally an agreement that we were going to reduce emissions. And my president, then President George H.W. Bush, traveled down there and signed the agreement. And everybody said, great, we're on our road. Well, nobody did anything. Then we went to Kyoto. In Kyoto, there was a forced effort to try to get something mandatory. Nobody wanted to do mandatory. So that didn't happen, and it died. I was in the Senate when it died, literally the day it did. So what's happened is, through a sort of duplicity that a lot of powerful corporations have engaged in. They say they're going to try for net zero, they're going to do this or that, but there's no genuine, major coordinated effort to do what we can be doing so easily in sharing and aggregating energy and pulling people together in order to head towards this goal. And finally, in Dubai, at the 28th COP, think of it, 28 COPs, and we still haven't gotten it right. So I believe that in Dubai, we did finally come to an agreement that if people did it, we could win the battle. And that agreement was very simple, was we must transition away from fossil fuel so as to achieve net zero by 2050, according to the science, which meant listen to 1.5, and accelerating in this decade. The only people who have really accelerated in this decade are the Chinese. They've deployed more renewables than all of the rest of the world put together. And we are still listening to powerful forces that just don't want to give up on their current revenue streams. And so they put a lot of disinformation out, lies, windmills give you cancer, kills the whales. And that's what stopped us from doing what we need to do.
Let me be very clear. If you imagine what happened in the last years in this part of the world, we lost an opportunity. But if we will be able to find a new way, we will play a different role as Europeans in the global stage. What it means, very briefly. First, innovation is not our enemy. Second, ideology couldn't change our mentality, because if we decide that is the only way we want to achieve, and we lost the opportunity, that means, of course, in every sector, we became a spectator and not a protagonist in the great competition between USA and China. So for Europe, I think we have to be less ideological, more able to invest in the very great talents we have in this part of the world and transform with digitalization, with electrification, with innovation, our energetic approach. The last point is clear. We cannot look what happened around the world for Strait of Hormuz, with Russia, with everywhere, and think that is not a problem about energy. Every single dossier in geopolitics is related to energy. If Europe will be able to wake up, we will play a role. The alternative, we became only spectator and we lost everything, because energy is the key for the future. It's not a simple dossier.
I like what you said, energy is everything. So I sometimes say energy is 5% of GDP, but it's the first 5%, and everything really flows from there. But how do we ensure, basically the same question I asked Matteo, that more of the value stays in Europe? Because speaking very openly, electrification may just mean buying more hardware from China. How do you ensure that more of the...
Well, I see electrification actually as a tool. It's about getting the black expensive foreign molecules out of the system and replacing them with green electrons. And the grid plan that I mentioned, well, one of the most important things we need to do, faster permitting. We're waiting sometimes a decade to get permits now. That will not work. Better planning. Today it's all bottom up. It's like, imagine 27 people building a jigsaw puzzle without looking at a picture on the box. Not very rational. So we want to have a possibility of making European-wide scenarios that's actually rational, that will decide where we need the big interconnectors, where we need the big investments.
One request I have as a former policy planner, not one department can do the kind of planning that you're talking about. Please include the security establishment, because we're basically putting down new energy infrastructure and we need to think this through this time around. So it's very important that it be a cross-departmental
No, and I'm
effort.
not saying there's not going to be dilemmas. Of course there is. I mean, one of the things that's happening right now with our green transition is that refineries are closing down. That's turned out to be a pretty big problem for us right now with the present crisis. So there are still things that we need to work out better.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Secretary Kerry, I come to you, or John, since we know each other. So you've spent decades, and you already spoke about it, building international climate cooperation. And let me say, you did a superb job. But today, the geopolitical landscape looks very different. We all see it, the rules-based multilateral order is under tremendous pressure. But is there an opportunity to now build broader coalitions, new types of coalitions that perhaps include the security establishment, that perhaps include industry, that include startups, that include the policy planners? How would you see that? What will that look like going forward when you look at it from your perspective of diplomacy and multilateralism?
Well, let me start by saying that I mentioned the COP earlier, the Conference of the Parties UN process, because that was the structure. I don't want to spend time on that because that's really been surpassed now. That is not the way this is going to get solved. And the reason I think that we're in better shape, I agree with Dan, and Dan was terrific in working very closely with us in Dubai, where we got the mission statement. We know what we have to do, but we're not paying attention to or honoring the facts, the basic facts. And in a democracy, if you can't agree on what the facts are, you really can't make decisions. And we're seeing people who are the prisoners of this phenomenon all around the world. So, you know, I had a colleague in the United States Senate, Daniel Patrick Moynihan in New York, who famously said, you know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And what we need to do is really restore, and it's people, it's folks here who can help us restore the credibility necessary to be able to move the decisions that we need. Now, I stopped being Secretary of State, and I began this journey on climate back in 1988 when Jim Hansen first testified to us in the Senate and said, this is happening. And we all girded up, we saddled up, we were ready to work. We went to Rio, we went to all these meetings, we did everything. And as I say, there was a young group of us in the Senate, Al Gore, myself, a bunch of us, really pushed hard to make the greater global system work. Didn't want it.
Yeah.
And part of the reality here, folks, is that people forget how simple this really is, actually. This isn't complicated. You don't need somebody who's down at SpaceX earning a lot of money from Elon.
Changing for consumers what the government's doing. But today is obviously a momentous day. Give us it from your perspective.
Look, it's a really tough day. It's a tough day for the country and for our party. I don't know if anybody watched Kier's speech, but
They were all here listening to us.
Well, it was really emotional.
Yeah.
It was really emotional, and there are, you know, obviously it's a position, but it's a person holding that position. And I thought the way he handled it was really dignified and with grace. And look, I personally am really grateful. He's given 6 years to our party and 2 years to the country. He's worked his socks off, and I think there will be a legacy that we'll look back on. And one of the key elements for me that I'm grateful for, we'll talk about today, is around the clean energy mission.
When the 4,000 people who are in this room type of question into Gemini, what actually happens behind the screen? Why should people care whether the search query was powered by sunshine or by the wind or something else?
Yeah, it's a great question, and maybe I'll start with flattering this audience and saying that from what I understand, most of the 4,000 people here are well-informed, highly engaged electricity consumers who understand that behind their electricity supply there are poles, there are pylons, wires, substations, wind farms, and for digital services, whether it's using Google search or using a large language model or accessing online banking, there's infrastructure that underpins that as well, and it's data centers and data networks, and we are all connected to them, we're all using them. So if, like me, you got here today using Google Maps, you have more than likely been using Google's data center over in Waltham Cross. And so we're connected directly. And as to the question as to why we should care about where the energy comes from, well, for the same reason we care about where our electricity supply comes from. It matters from our climate goals, it matters from an energy affordability perspective. Maybe just to connect Google and data centers, we design and operate a fleet of data centers. We have 9 in Europe. And we firmly believe that data centers can be supportive to the grid, they can strengthen the grid, they can be key drivers of bringing affordable, clean, reliable power. And our sector is really led in that regard. We are the leading buyers of clean energy in the corporate sector. Google, we have a 100 megawatt contract with an offshore wind farm, the Moray West wind farm. And for us, that's critical, putting new clean generation online as we grow our data center footprint to make sure we're contributing to those climate and energy affordability goals. Well, I feel they're a bit boring when you see them up front. They're not very exciting. There's not a lot of moving parts, but I should say data centers come in all shapes and sizes. They're all doing very different things, very different services, but there is a trend in the sector more generally towards larger data centers. And what we see there is actually that's an opportunity for greater efficiency. So over the past 5 years, or compared with 5 years ago, we at Google in our data centers, we get 6 times as much computing power out of the same kilowatt hour of electricity. And that's thanks in parts to amazing breakthroughs in the underlying hardware, the chips, but it's also because of scale with these hyperscale data centers that Google develops. There are economies of scale and opportunities for them to be much more efficient. But under that, there is electricity demand, it's growing, it's providing digital services to enterprises, to businesses, to public sector, to educational institutions. But it's critical that we ensure that supply is from clean power.
We should really rethink a little bit the model of data centers so that we don't see them as those unflexible big plugs that want to come to the grids and we all have to pay for the grid upgrades for them, which is really a bit of an issue that we've seen across other grids. And try to flip the model on its head. What if those data centers are flexible or are open to providing more flexibility through different tools and marketplace? And now this data center that used to be a consumer or large loads that we have to integrate on the grids, we have to do the efforts. This data center becomes an anchor to fund and to finance those type of flexibilities. So I think for those data centers to be able to access the grid a little bit faster, but at the same time help us not just maintain the price of electricity, but really reduce the cost of electricity for the communities where they are going. We have 3 levers. The first one, as we mentioned, the grid is vastly underutilized, but there are a few hours during the year where the conditions on the grid are pretty tight and the grid is strained. And so if we can all mobilize demand flexibility to help reduce those constraints, then we are saving billions of pounds on grid infrastructure investments. The second lever is going to be more around this energy mismatch and how do we get demand to be more flexible, to be more local, and close to generations that otherwise would be curtailed because the grid cannot wield those electrons. And the last one is really what I was referring to, which is no, we should really flip this data center model from those energy hogs as we keep hearing about it and have them becoming more the funders and the anchors on those local energy markets, those local flexibility assets. And if they cannot flex themselves, can they pay us? Can they pay your heat pumps, your EV chargers, other big batteries on the grids to flex? And this way we can finance those technologies that have been existing for a while, but we're still struggling to get them at scale.
Power, we've got a partner of ours who is using AI to enable power generation from waves, eco wave power they're called. Also in wind and solar, so many opportunities for AI to help be a solution that goes well beyond its own footprint.
I'm smiling because I once did a story about a guy who ran a nightclub near King's Cross, and he had a dance floor that generated kinetic energy. I never saw the battery that it was connected to, although I did dance vigorously to try and generate some. Just to finish off, Josh, NVIDIA, you touched upon the grid there. You were part of the National Grid's first AI live trial technology that adjusts the power usage of data centers in real time. So just to sum up in the last couple of minutes we've got, what were the takeaways there? And also to wrap up, do you think the AI boom fundamentally is a threat to cheaper energy, or is it actually going to unlock lower bills for everybody?
AI definitely has the potential to support energy affordability, and I think over the medium term, it's inevitable. AI will support energy affordability. In the near term, we need to be intentional about how we use it so that we're taking advantage of things like flexibility to make sure that we're maintaining affordability in the near term as well. But the pilot that you mentioned was a partnership between Emerald AI and Nebius and National Grid and NVIDIA, where we basically demonstrated in real time how a data center, a large load, could be very reactive to different circumstances on the grid. We looked at the kettle effect during halftime for football matches to say, okay, everybody at halftime goes and turns on their kettles. There's a huge spike in energy demand. How could a data center be a grid asset by ramping down its energy consumption at those times and allow the system to operate again at a higher utilization, which means a more efficient grid. And we even simulated things like a lightning strike. And in 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds, we were able to reduce the energy consumed by the data center by 30%. So these very quickly, as data centers become AI managed, they end up being grid assets that really support both the reliability and the affordability of the existing infrastructure.
The kettle test I get here, I wonder if everyone's switching on the kettle at half-time in America during the World Cup. Probably not going to run that same test there.
In a world of AI and endless information, is trust the only superpower that really matters? Please welcome Jimmy Wells and Hannah Fry!
A lot of people in it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I didn't realise.
Let's hope the aircon holds out. I mean, every single AI model on Earth is trained on the stuff that you built. I mean, do you worry that you have maybe inadvertently trained Wikipedia's successor?
I mean, who knows, right? But like our philosophy has always been, like Wikipedia is completely open source, so free license. It's our gift to the world, so this amazing community of nerds just writing an encyclopedia because we enjoy the hobby. And on one level, we're really, really happy. Like if AI is a little bit more sensible from reading Wikipedia, that's a good thing. I mean, you can imagine what would an AI be like if it were trained only on Twitter? It would be very angry and very stupid,
How trust breaks down, about how misinformation spreads, about how AI is being used to deceive people, about what's good about humanity too, I guess. Tell us the one lesson that you've learned from all of that people in this room can take away.
I mean, we all know this already, like the vast majority of people, like everyone in this room, the vast majority of people are basically good. They're decent, they're kind, they want to do best, they want to take care of their kids, they want to, And I always say out of 1,000 people, there's probably 10 who are quite annoying. Even the quite annoying ones are probably not actually malicious. And so that, I see that all the time. I see it I was just in Kerala and I visited the local Wikipedia community, and they were so excited to tell me about their work with the local schools and libraries and things like that. And then they brought their kids, and the kids are like, oh, we're just trying to think about, we might edit Wikipedia, but we're not sure. I'm like, fantastic. Like, these are proper people. This is what it should all be about. This is what the dream of the internet is really all about. And I just think we, all of us, have to really push and say, let's fight for that. Let's fight for that world where things that matter are things that we do.
How inspiring is that? My goodness me. Jimmy, I'm so glad we get to live in a world with you in it. Jimmy Wells, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Very good.
What
What a day. So we are here to solve the energy trilemma. It's been tried by many governments, and we haven't quite got it right, maybe. But this time we're going to be thinking expansively about what needs to change.
The best innovation out of the UK and back it, and stop being so rigid. Just back the really good people.
That's to the Treasury, I think, that one. Anyway, Carolina.
For me, it's about understanding what the right trade-offs are for the country. So I know that all decisions have many implications, but it's bringing the whole country with you when you make those decisions.
Thank you.
For me, I mentioned energy being less politicized, and to be very precise within that, I'm really hoping for more clarity and transparency around national security. And that's a framework we need to set up. Based on our analysis and also the working with the National Cyber Security Center and all that, we understand right now the practice is preceding regulation. Nobody knows what good looks like. We need the right standard, the policy, the visibilities, the transparency to make a future-proof energy transition process.
Oh, but Eamon, if there isn't delightful ambiguity, we won't be able to say no to good projects. I mean, what are you talking about? Right, Kingsmill, to you.
Well, if I'm the last word, I would say 2 centuries ago we rose to greatness in Britain on the fossil fuel system. Now we can rise to greatness on the electric system. Yeah.
Fantastic, look at that. Well.
Fantastic. I've done about 4 of the 11 questions I had to ask you, but that's fine. So probably the last question, and it's one that probably a lot of these people in the audience, I think with the best will in the world, and with no disrespect to everyone in here, we're probably all already in the energy transition. I'm sure a lot of you've got heat pumps, EVs, and all the rest of it. And because we're probably most of us the early adopters on this end of the normal distribution curve, the next tranche of people that we need to get is most people. Most people are probably not that well off. They've got kids to feed, mortgages to pay. They haven't got the headspace for thinking about the transition. And there's a danger, again, a cynic would say that so far the incentives and what have you in place have just given an incentive for people who can probably afford EVs and heat pumps and solar panels in the first place. For example, the £3,750 deal for the EVs, the government incentive for the EVs, you could argue that the next tranche of people, most people, a lot of them haven't got off-street parking. They're going to be beholden to public charging. Why don't we make that £3,750 instead of a discount off a car that you're going to buy on a lease deal anyway, and you hardly notice it in your monthly payments? Give a 90% discount off your public charging, so that you could do that for 3.5 years for a driver buying a car now on average mileage, average costs in the UK. They could get 90% off their public charging for 3.5 years for £3,750. So is the government putting the right incentives into place? I guess that's my question.
I mean, first of all, that's a brilliant idea, so we're just going to talk about it off stage. But look at that, Dave. You've literally just pitched your idea. That's absolutely brilliant.
I was determined to get it in there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get 5 more minutes and see what else. And I think, first of all, it's quite common in many markets that early adopters spend quite a lot of money for expensive products that don't really work, paving the way for mass market adoption. So, for example, you saw with mobile phones. It's worth, some people in this room will be old enough to remember when a mobile phone it was the size of an old-fashioned car battery with a wire up to here, and if somebody walked down the street with it, someone else would yell out their car window, "Wanker!" Right?
Yeah.
But that highly kind of inconvenient device that wasn't popular paved the way for the bit where, like, literally every one of us has got a mobile, right, near enough, that they've got the computing power, like, 10,000 times more computing power than PCs did 30 years ago. And it's revolutionised the planet, maybe largely for the good. But it came, like when the iPhone launched, Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft, said $450 for a touchscreen phone. No one's going to pay that, right? Yeah. So innovation starts with expensive stuff. But that iPhone paved within 5 or 10 years the route to a $30, $20 smartphones in developing countries that genuinely did change people's lives. So in the same way, an electric car used to be a 100 grand Tesla or something. again, like while I was travelling, the best-selling car in China at the moment is an electric car that costs between £5,000 and £6,000, with I think a 250 mile range. It's a brand new car.
Yeah.
Okay. Like if we challenge the assumptions of 10 years ago when we first saw this stuff, the reality is a lot of it now paves the way for genuinely democratising things. And you mentioned there off-street parking, right? I get this all the time because I'll say, look, on an Octopus Smart tariff, on indeed other companies, you can charge, you can drive at 5 or 6 times less than the cost of petrol, free if you've got bi-directional. And time and again, people go, oh, but not everyone can charge at home. Nobody can charge petrol at home.
No, that's true.
So how have we ended up in a world?
Good point.
Oh my God, that was my guess. There were, in that car, 1,132 octopuses. Oh, here he comes. Chris Charles. Congratulations. Chris just ran up here. That's the last time Chris is ever going to have to run in his life. Chris, how are you feeling?
Pretty surprised. Excited. Cool.
Do you drive?
I haven't had a car for 10 years, so it's quite exciting.
That's exactly what you want, isn't it? Thank you all. Can I say genuinely, thank you to Octopus Energy. They do things differently, I have to say, and that's why we love them. And I know this day has been incredibly interesting for people, but there's a lot of fun as well with Octopus, and this is a lot of fun. And the person having the most fun of all, ladies and gentlemen, it is Chris. Congratulations, Chris.